This week, Eric, Treasury reported, or rather expected to announce final rules for a $5 billion supplier bailout program. Just how much will that program help America's flagging auto industry? Joining us now is Republican Congressman from Michigan, Thaddeus McCotter. Congressman, we're so glad to have you with us. It seems probable that the suppliers will get this money, $5 billion. Is this the right thing to do? Is it necessary?
Well, it's necessary to keep the supply chain in place. As you know, the president gave GM 60 days to restructure or go into bankruptcy, 30 days for Chrysler to merge with Fiat or go into bankruptcy. What they do not want is the supply chain that undergirds it to be devastated, so that even if these companies are restructured and come out successfully and be viable, that there's no supply chain in place.
Now, you have companies in your home state of Michigan, Lear, Borg Warner. I mean, a lot of these companies, so you're seeing firsthand. Are you hearing from them just that they're upset, they're concerned? I'm assuming the answer is yes.
Well, everyone's concerned with what the ultimate job losses will be, what the companies will ultimately look like. We've seen policy goals from the president and his auto team, but we've yet to see real profitability marks and targets in terms of employees that are lost, what retirees have to sacrifice, and that's one of the things that leads to uncertainty amongst our constituents.
Congressman, even with this program in place, okay, with the suppliers, how concerned are you still that if Chrysler files bankruptcy, which is a possibility, that it'll have a domino effect and drag down GM, potentially Ford? Does this program diminish that possibility?
Well, I think it helps diminish it from being sucked down like quicksand. Again, it seems to be well-timed on the administration's part to keep the supply chain in place until they know what they're going to be looking at after a potential bankruptcy or a restructuring that occurs before that, because they want to know what they're looking at. Again, it's the uncertainty that really hurts. In Detroit, we understand restructuring, we understand the need for it, we've been doing it, continue to do it, but we need to know what we're supposed to look like at the end of that process, and we don't yet.
Is $5 billion too small?
I think we're not going to know until we find out what the result of the restructuring is within the 60-day period or the 30-day period. Like you point out, we may or may not have a Chrysler.
I was going to say, what happens then? I mean, we're talking about diminishing the possibility that Chrysler would drag down the other two automakers, but still, that specter still exists, very real, that if Chrysler goes down, from your point of view, that it could drag down General Motors? Potentially Ford?
It could drag down the supply chain. This is why even the transplants supported the initial bridge loan from the administration. Is the auto industry is very interrelated, be you a domestic auto industry company or be you a transplant auto industry company. It's a very delicate interaction between them, and when one is harmed, you could see a cascading effect, and I think that's what the administration is trying to prevent.
Also, Fiat and Chrysler, as a congressman, talking to the auto companies on Capitol Hill, any indication at all that Chrysler's making any progress at all in forming that essential joint venture with Fiat that they need to survive?
They had announced a global framework early on in the process. They have said that they could be as much as 85% of the way through, and obviously the 15 would be the hard part. But the negotiations did not start when the administration made their announcement. They've been ongoing, and I think the reality of keeping Chrysler alive through a merger is very much in the forefront of the people's thoughts at the time.
I mean, do you think when we get to the end of the day, it'll get done? When we get to the 30th day of this deadline, will we have a joint venture? Or what's the other option for you as a congressman?
Well, I don't like to go into long-term prognostications. Members of Congress are notoriously bad at that sort of thing. But what we are certain is that Chrysler does understand the charge in front of it. They do not want to go into bankruptcy any more than GM does, and we certainly don't want that for the people of Michigan, the manufacturing sector.
You're a member of the House Republican leadership. You have a sort of a bird's eye view of what's happening business-wise. Do you find resistance in your own party for quote-unquote bailouts?
Oh, yes, and I think that what we've seen now is a continuation of those of us who opposed the TARP in the first place. Continue to see that it's going on and on, the long unwinding of AIG, which has not been accorded to the auto industry or other areas of the economy, is when you are in TARP world, there are so few good options that are presented. And so the only way to do it is to go back to the seminal flaw, which was the Wall Street bailout.
All right, Congressman, we thank you for your time. Congressman Thaddeus McCotter there, Republican from Michigan. Much more on autos when we come back in 2.